Okay, so this question comes from Denise, who's one of my YouTube subscribers. So, hi, Denise. This question is from you, and I think it's a great question, and I'm sure lots and lots of other people have been asking exactly the same thing. And that is, why on earth can I not use my cutting mat for measurements, bearing in mind that cutting mats have all the measurement lines on them? And it's a very valid question. So let me answer that for you. I'm going to switch cameras so that you can see my cutting mats, or one of them. I have lots of cutting mats. Okay, so here we go. Now, there's various reasons why you should not be using your cutting mat for measuring your fabric. And the first thing is that cutting mats are flexible. So over time, they warp and they distort. So this particular one here is about 10 years old. And I don't know if you can see just up here. So this here has warped. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, it has warped over time. It just is what happens to cutting mats over a long period of time. So when you have that warpiness, is that a word, warpiness? When you have that warped and distortion going on, your measurements are going to go out of kilter. So we obviously don't want that, because we are aiming for accuracy when we're measuring our fabric for quilting. And let me show you, particularly with the measurements against a ruler. You see, a ruler doesn't warp, it doesn't bend, it just stays exactly where it is meant to be, and that's what we need. You see, quilting is all about the accuracy, as I've just said, so we want to make sure that every single time we cut, it is accurate. What you don't want is things to move about. So let me show you here. Let's just shuffle some things around so I can show you. Okay, this, by the way, this lovely cutting mat is my very first cutting mat that I ever bought. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's not my very first cutting mat. It's probably my second cutting mat I bought myself. But when I got into quilting seriously, which was about 10-12 years ago, this was the cutting mat I bought. It's a lovely cutting mat, but it does age with time. So let me show you with my ruler here. If I hold this up against the measurements at the bottom of the cutting mat, okay, you can see here that the measurements on my ruler, which are never going to move, can you see? Let me just move that into the center of the screen a little bit more. I think that's better for you to see. So can you see here, my inch lines and my 1/8 of an inch lines all match up beautifully with the lines on the ruler. So far so good, you might think. Let's just shuffle along a little bit. And can you see over here, they're starting to go out of sync. So where is that starting to happen? There's about a 7-inch line here. Can you see this line on the ruler here is now out of sync with the measurement line over here? Let's just try and put this into shot a little bit more. I'll tell you, I bet Netflix don't have this problem. Okay, so can you see over here that these lines, the measurement lines, are now out of kilter with the lines on the cutting mat, or the cutting mat is out of kilter with the ruler, and we don't want that at all. So if they're okay up here but they're not okay down here, that's not so good when you're using your cutting mat to measure out. So, and this is what happens with all cutting mats over time. They may be okay to start with, but over time, through extended use, they'll start warping and the measurements will change. And because in quilting, we're sometimes just measuring 1/4 of an inch, like 3 1/4 or 3 3/4, you want that to be really accurate. Okay, so that's the first reason. The second reason, as I said, it distorts. We've spoken about that. Just at the top here, they distort. So your fabric will not lie flat on this cutting mat at all. And you want your fabric to be lying flat when you are cutting. Otherwise, that measurement's going to go out as well. The third thing is, can you see this line down the middle here? Okay, that line is where I have repeatedly cut, because when we when we cut our fabric on a cutting mat, you will always find you're cutting the same types of measurements, and you'll have your sort of favourite place on the cutting mat. And there's nothing wrong in that, but over time you will get this groove appearing. And when you get this groove appearing, your rotary cutter will start falling into that groove. It'll be a bit more difficult to start getting your fabric aligned properly. Now, yes, of course, you can move your fabric around, but these things kind of all happen in one go. You'll get this groove happening, you'll get the distortion happening, you'll get the measurements going out of sync all at the same time. And really, that's not good for measuring your fabric. So what I suggest right from the get-go is only use your ruler for your measuring. Use your cutting mat to do the cutting on, but you are putting, let me just bring this camera out just a little bit better. There we go. So use your, as I said, use your cutting mat for laying your fabric on. Use your cutting mat, absolutely use these lines for straightening up your fabric. So if you want to straighten up the edge and you're putting it against the one of the lines here, absolutely use that, that's perfect. But use your ruler for the cutting, because your ruler will never change. Okay, the only exception to the rule is if you are cutting a big piece of fabric. Let's just say you were cutting a cushion back, so you needed a 15 or 16 inch square. In that case, I would absolutely use my cutting mat. It's going to be a little bit difficult to cut it out with your ruler, but with your cutting mat, a 15 or 16 inch square is easy to do on a cutting mat. And if it's out a little bit, it's not going to matter in the great scheme of things. So I hope that helps you understand why you shouldn't ever be using your cutting mat for measuring. Use that for the cutting on to protect your surfaces, but use your ruler for the measuring. I hope that helps. If you've got any questions on cutting mats, please put them in the comments just below here and I will answer them for you. So look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.